to Mammoth Interactive's course on a collector game made in GameMaker. The concept here is very simple, but it is quite fun. You are an arrow here in the middle. You are this green arrow which smoothly follows the mouse, and you have to collect as much gems as you can. So the gems are these little images here that you see. So you have a red hourglass, you have a yellow hexagon, and a purple sphere. Okay, so you collect as much as you can to get a better score, and you only have 10 seconds to do that. Okay, my record was about 92 points, but I think it is possible to get 100. Maybe you can try to do that by yourself once you're done with this lesson. So this course is targeted for beginners, so if you just started learning how to make games, or maybe you're starting on how to program, or maybe you're just bored and you want to learn a new concept or a new subject, then this course is going to be great for you. My name is Glauco Pires. I've been working with games since 2010, and throughout the years I worked with several different technologies and engines like Unity, Unreal, HTML5. I've made Flash games and GameMaker games, of course, so I have some experience that I'd like to share with you, and divide this course in different topics. So we're going to see one by one how we make sprites, how we make the player turn, how we work with collision, with spawning, with interfaces. We're going to calmly look on every single one of these topics for you to understand in the best manner possible how to make this game. So if you don't own GameMaker yet, you can just go to the Yo-Yo Games website and you make a free account and activate a free license, and after that you can download the GameMaker Studio. After you install it, in the next video we're going to learn how to make a simple project and start understanding the basic concepts of GameMaker. I hope you're excited to start this, and I see you in the next video. Welcome back. Now that you downloaded GameMaker Studio and logged in into the software, you should see this window here, this very simple interface. We're going to click on the New tab, so we create a new project here. So we need to set two things. We have to set the project directory and the project name. We need to make a project because that's how you make different games of different types. So if you want to make 5 different games, you need to make 5 different projects. And you need a directory to store these projects. I like to make a projects folder, but this could also be named workspaces. Don't just drop it in your home folder or documents, downloads, and desktop, because it's going to mix with other things. So have a folder just for your projects. So after that, we need to set the project name. We're going to name this collector, as we're going to collect things, of course. We now hit create, and we're going to wait for GameMaker to open and be ready for us to use. So the interface contains several things to look at here, but it's actually very simple. Don't get scared by the things that you see here. Here at the top you have several options. If you put your mouse, you're going to see a tooltip explaining what this button does. So you can save the game, you can run it, you can create a web server to make your game run on it. You could add sprites, create backgrounds, and you have several things here. But anyway, you just have to care about the save the game button and run the game as well. And if you have a professional version of GameMaker, you can select the target build here. Alright, but we're just going to leave Windows. The most important thing that we're going to see in this lesson is this window here, this portion of the editor to the left. This is the hierarchy tree of GameMaker. It's like a folder view, just like the one you see in your operating systems. Either you work with Windows, Mac, or Linux. Whatever operating system you use, there is a folder structure. So there is a root folder where you contain all your other folders, like the My Computer, for example, and you have several folders on that My Computer. In the case of GameMaker, we have several folders that each folder works for a different game element. So we have things like sprites, sounds, backgrounds, paths, all of them in separate folders. And it doesn't matter how many elements you have. So if I make 5 sprites, they're going to be inside the sprites folder. You can have subfolders as well to organize the things a little bit better. You're going to need to do this if you're going to make big projects, and you can organize this very nicely. So the ones that we're going to care about the most are going to be the sprites folder. We're also going to work with objects And finally, we're going to work with rooms. We have these three guys here where we have to work. So let's understand what sprites are. You have to right click on the sprites folder and select create sprite. So you have this window here. Let's maximize it, and there we go. What is a sprite? A sprite is an image or an animation, okay? Either a still image or an illusion of movement by selecting several images and adding a speed to make these images change. So you have the illusion of movement. So in general, sprites are things that represent visually a game object. So if you want to have a player, okay, that looks like a smiley face or maybe an arrow, it doesn't matter if it is a living thing or some abstract art. You need an image, okay? You need something that is going to represent that object, so the player sees that object and they can see it moving. You can see it changing colors, for example. So you need to make sprites. And let's make the player sprite. We're going to name this player, but we're also going to start by typing SPR underscore. This is a pattern. This is a good practice in GameMaker. Whenever you're making an object, when you're making a thing, okay, a game element in GameMaker, you start by putting an abbreviation of that thing you're creating. Since we're making a sprite, this is going to be SPR. If you were making a font, it would be FNT. Okay, you can follow, and then you can type underscore and type the name of whatever you are using. So we're going to call this SPR underscore player. Now we're going to click here on Edit Sprite. So we see this window here, and we're going to do this because we're going to draw our sprite here in GameMaker. If you have an image in your computer, or a PNG or a JPG file, you can just click here on Load Sprite and open it from your operating system. But let's click on Edit Sprite. To create a new sprite, we have to click on this little sheet here, this piece of paper. So we click on Create a New Sprite, and we have to set the sprite size. Let's use 64 pixels of width by 64 pixels of height. Okay, you can set whatever you want here, of course. Now we hit OK. We're going to see this square here with the name image0, and it's going to look like a checkerboard of gray boxes, but this is just to say that the image is transparent. You don't have to worry about how this is looking. Right? So let's double click now, and if you have ever used Paint or Photoshop or maybe GIMP, this should be familiar to you. Okay, you can this is a very simple image editor, so we can zoom in here and we can draw the player that we're going to use. Okay, you have several tools here at the left. You can choose a pencil to draw pixels very loosely like this. You can draw lines as well, so you can click and make it look like this. And you can draw polygons, so you have a polygon tool, you have a rectangle, an ellipse, and a round rectangle. We're going to use the polygon tool, right? And as for the colors, okay, whenever you are drawing polygons, so I'm choosing this one here, you notice that there's a shape field. So you can paint only the outline, you can paint outline and fill, or you can paint fill only. Okay, we're going to select outline and fill. This should be already selected for you. Now, when you select outline and fill, you have two different colors to set. You have to set the outline and the fill. And you can select two colors here at the color picker. So the way it is right now, when we draw a polygon, the outline is going to be black and the fill is going to be white. Okay, so you have the left and right colors. It's color number 1 and color number 2. For making the player, I'm going to choose white as the outline color, so I left click on white, so it looks like this. And for the fill color, I'm going to choose green, so I'm going to right click on the green color. So you have white on the left and green on the right. Okay, and to draw the player, I'm simply going to drag, I'm going to click here at the top left of the window. I'm going to drag to whatever the player is going to look. The player is going to be an arrow. Okay, it's going to be some sort of abstract art. And this is not an excuse for me not being able to draw. Okay, I just want to make the style look like this. But if you want to make something better, just go ahead and draw whatever you want. But there's one important thing here. Make the player point to the right. Okay, so if you make a car or if you make a plane, make it point to the right. Okay, and you're going to understand this later. So this is going to be our player. Okay, I'm going to add more details to it. So I'm going to choose the line tool here. And since the line contains only one color, it's going to use the left one, which is white, so it's fine for me. I'm simply going to add little details here, so it's a bit more complex. It's a bit nicer. Okay, so this should be good. And to save that sprite, we're going to click here on close the image to save it, and then we can do that again. All right, so our image is here. And also to center the image, because images in computers, they are drawn from the top left. Okay, so if you have a picture here of I don't know, if you took a selfie of yourself, the origin of the image in the computer is on the top left. Okay, and this is where it starts drawing. So everything you see in your screen, it is generally drawn from the top left. So pixel by pixel, the image is drawn until it reaches the bottom right. So the origin is here. And if you want to move this origin to the center, and this is very important if you want to rotate a few elements, you just have to click here in the center button. This is all you need to make it be centered, and you're going to see an arrow here. Alright, so let's click OK now. So our sprite is fully saved. We can even see a thumbnail for it. And sprites by themselves, they can't react. You can't add game logic to them. You can't change their size. You can't change their, I don't know, you can't instantiate them. You can't change the color. You can't do any complex things that makes games, to be fun, to be interactive. To do this, you need objects. Okay, so we're going to right click on objects. We're going to select create object. Let's maximize this window, and we're simply going to name this object obj underscore player, and in sprite we're going to click here and choose spr underscore player. We have other fields here, but we're going to see them shortly. We now hit OK, so our object player is saved here, and now we need to put this player somewhere. Okay, whenever we run the game, we want to be able to see the player, so we need to make a room. Rooms are like screens or scenes. Okay, it's something that contains a size. Okay, imagine it is a box, and you're going to put your game elements there, or you're going to add interface buttons, maybe a main menu. Okay, all these things are rooms. So let's right click on the rooms folder, we hit create room, you maximize this. So let's change the name of the room to rm underscore game, as we're going to make the game logic here. In width, we're going to use 800 pixels, and in height we're going to use 640. Now note that you can use the default size here. I'm just making a bit smaller just to fit this recording. Okay, so it's going to look like this. Here in speed, okay, this is the number of steps per second. If you put your mouse on it, it's going to give that tooltip that is going to say the number of steps per second. But what does that mean? This is how quick your game is going to be processed in whatever platform it is running. It could be in your notebook, it could be on your smartphone or smart TV, smartwatch, whatever platform. This is how quick it works. It's a FPS count. You might know that acronym. It's frames per second. So 30 is a nice number. If you want a smoother experience, you can use 60, but you just have to be a bit more careful with performance. Since the game is going to be processed faster, then if you I don't know, if you make something that is not very efficient, then the game might lag a little bit, and it might compromise the player's experience. Okay, but since the game is going to be simple, we can use 60 without any problems. So let's give a background to this image. Let's click simply on the background tab. We're going to click on this color rectangle here, and we're going to choose black. Okay, full black here. So the window looks like this. And finally, we need to add our player. Okay, we drew a player, we made an object, but we still don't have it here. So to do this, we're going to the Objects tab. And here, where it says Object to add with left mouse, we need to make sure obj underscore player is selected. If it isn't, we just have to click on this button here and select obj underscore player. And now we just click in the room, and we have our player here. Okay, we have a little arrow pointing to the right. It's my abstract art. Okay, it's not an excuse because I don't know how to draw. So now to test this, we're going to click on Run the Game. Let's wait for the code to compile for our project to be saved. And after this is done, we're going to see this window here. And finally, we see a black window with an arrow in the middle. Okay, so we have all the necessary things we needed to have to start making this game come true. You can close this window. You can even click on this green tick here just to save the room and make sure it is properly loaded. So in the next video, we're going to learn how to make our player move. to make our player move, we need to understand how the coordinate system in GameMaker works. So imagine you see this window here where you see a room. You have to imagine that you have two arrows here, one pointing down and another one pointing to the right. So the one that points to the right is the x-axis, or the horizontal axis, and the one that points down is the y-axis, or the vertical one. So these two arrows, they define things like the positioning, or it defines the direction which our objects are pointing at. So you have to keep these two things in mind. If you never make games, this should be a bit different for you to use, but you have to use this all the time whenever you're making games. You always need to keep track of the coordinate system to understand how the positioning works. So our player right now is in a certain position, okay? It is right here where I'm marking an X here, and this is a coordinate. Again, to see the coordinate, you have to go to the room and you click on the player, and you can go to objects, okay, and you're going to see here that the position in X is 416 and on Y is 320. Okay, so imagine we have our arrows here, we have Y and we have X here. So the position of the player can be something thought more or less like this, okay? Imagine you have some dotted lines that cross a certain point in the horizontal axis, that it is 416 here and 320. Okay, so this is what we're going to need to understand to make the player move. So right now they're in the position, but what if we want to move the player, I don't know, to the position 30-30, for example? How do we do this? We have to go to the player's object. So let's open obj_player, and we need to understand how events and actions work. So events are things that happen in a certain moment of time. So it could be a party, it could be a presentation, or maybe a flight that you're going to get to another country. And actions are the things that are going to happen when these events take place. So if you're going to take a flight, okay, so if there's going to be a flight to a certain country, you have to prepare yourself, you have to make your luggage, put all your clothes in, and get your passport, get money if you need it. So you need to do these two things. When events happen, actions are taken. So it's more or less about action and reaction. All right. So let's make a very quick test here. Let's click on Add Event, and we're going to select Create. Okay, and Create is one of the most basic events in GameMaker. You actually have two. You have Create, and you also have Step. Okay, you have these two events here, and the difference between them is the Create event is called whenever your object is ready. So that means that the room has been properly loaded, and the room loaded your player also, so you can use it, so you can make it move, you can rotate it, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so and the step event is the one that is called every time. So every time your player object is processed by your room, and since your room runs at the speed of 60, that processing is going to happen 60 times a second, then you can do whatever you want. Okay, so for step, we're going to drag an action here. Now notice we have different actions. We have several buttons here here at the right. So you have actions for movement, you have important actions like destroying, creating, changing color, changing the size, and you can restart the game. There are several things here, and these are great for in GameMaker because you can make full games without having to write one line of code. But with code we have more versatility, we have more freedom to do whatever we want. Okay, we can change things very quickly, we can tune the game by changing speeds, changing directions, for example. So it is important to learn how to code. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this code block here and drop it here in the actions window. So we drop it here, and you notice that you have a text editor, a very simple text editor. So before I told you, what if we want to move the player to the position 30-30? To do that, we can simply type x equals to 30 and y equals to 30. Okay, let's hit play to see what's going to happen. I'm going to explain you soon what we just did. So let's wait for the project to compile, and there we go, we have our window, and notice that our player now is at the top left of the window. Okay, this is the position 30-30. Okay, what you see here translates to 30 pixels of width. So we have 30 here, and we have 30 here as well. Okay, so what did we do here? We used variables. So GameMaker packs every object with several variables which you can use. And variables, they are certain positions in memory, on the memory of your device, that hold a value. So X is a convenient name that translates to a certain number. That could be something like that, for example. But of course, this is unreadable. Okay, you can't just say, hey, 124879194 is the horizontal position of our object. This is terrible to remember, so we can just use X, which is provided by GameMaker. When we use this equal sign, we're making an assignment. Okay, so we are storing the number 30 in the variable that is called X. Okay, this is not like an equation in maths. Okay, if you were to make a comparison, you would use two equal signs, but we're going to see this later. Okay, so anyway, this is an assignment. You're getting this 30 here and putting inside X. And when we add this semicolon here, it's just to say that we finished writing this statement. And the same works for Y. Okay, we say I equal to 30 means that we are assigning the number 30 to Y. Okay, and this is enough to make the player move. So now that we know how to make the player move, we need to understand how to make the player follow the mouse, because this is the main mechanic of the game. We're going to do this in the next lesson.